taking on new ideas, it is important to know how well they work and what evidence there is to support them. In education, there have been many ideas that really were based on fashion rather than facts. It certainly was not based on what works best for all the children. For example, it was not that long ago that teachers were told that the children should not sound out the words and blend them. They should learn the frequently used words by memorizing them from their shapes, and then read the other words by using the picture, the context, and the first letter to help them predict the words. The books the children were given often used repetitive sentences, such as, "The dog was hot," and there would be a humorous picture of the dog looking very hot. Then on the next page, "The kangaroo was hot," "The pig was hot," "The hippopotamus was hot," "The rabbit was hot," "The goat was hot," but not the elephant. On the last picture, there would be a picture of a smiling elephant standing in a pool of water, using his trunk to give himself a cold shower. And most of the children could manage these books by memorizing the repetitive sentences and using the pictures for the names of the animals. The snag was that the children thought they could read, but if you took the words away from the context and pictures, they usually couldn't read them at all. And this method of teaching was poor advice for teachers. I suppose the idea was that the children would learn the words by being exposed to them many times. And some children, as has been mentioned before, did manage to remember the words and went on to work out how the code worked for themselves. However, a large number of children were failed, and still are failed, when they are expected to memorize words and use pictures and context for clues. And there are still some schools where, in the early stages, the children are given reading books that use words that they cannot work out because the words have letter sounds in them that the children have not been taught. And this causes many of the problems and is particularly detrimental to the children who struggle and who need intervention. There is a code to reading and writing, and when the children are taught to use the code from the beginning, then it is possible for all children in mainstream education to become successful at reading and writing. It is not just my opinion. There is a great deal of evidence that demonstrates the effectiveness of synthetic phonics teaching. For a start, there have been many research studies and case studies carried out with Jolly Phonics, and these are available on the Jolly Learning website. Other synthetic phonics programs have also measured the effectiveness of this type of teaching. Information about their findings can be found in the resources section on the home page. However, my favourite report, showing detailed evidence of effectiveness, was written by Dr. Marlin Grant, which is downloadable at the end of this section. Now, Dr. Grant measured the progress made by the children in 2 schools over several years. In these 2 longitudinal studies, she demonstrates what can be achieved by children, especially those who are considered vulnerable to failure. Now, the Department of Education identified the following groups as being vulnerable. In other words, these children are more likely to have problems with learning to read than the other children. And as you can see, the first group is boys. And for many years, the boys, on average, have been considerably poorer than the girls on national tests. Also vulnerable were children from low-income families who qualify for free school meals, pupil premium children, children whose ethnicity is non-white British, children whose first language is not English, children with special educational needs, and children with summer birthdays. Let us look at the children in the first school in Dr. Grant's report. This school had a high level of social and special educational needs. The 30 children in reception class, which is the first year in school, were studied from 2010 to 2013. and none of the children could read or knew any letter sounds when they started at the school. At the end of the first year, the children were tested on the BAS2 word reading and spelling achievement scales, which is a test used by educational psychologists. And just look at these results. Here we have the whole class, 30, and they have an average chronological age of 5 years, 5 months, and they are reading on average at 6 years, 7 months. So these children are 14 months ahead of chronological age for reading, and for spelling they're 12 months ahead. Look, the summer birthdays, they did even better. Of course, they're younger when they started. They were 5 years and 1 month when they took the test, and then they were 6 years and 7 months on the reading test. That is 18 months above chronological age and 16 months above in spelling. Those boys were 15 months ahead for reading, 13 for spelling. The traveller was 11 months ahead and 8 months for spelling. The girls, 13 months for reading, 10 for spelling. The free school meals were reading 10 months ahead and 7 months for spelling. A severe behaviour child was 7 months ahead for reading and 13 for spelling. English as an additional language, 9 months ahead and 4 for spelling. And the catch-up group, which of course are the group of children who've been identified as having problems, they achieved 7 months ahead for reading and 8 months for spelling. And then if we look a year later, you can see the class is now 26, some have left. The average chronological age was 6 years and 4 months, and they are reading on average 8 years and 2 months, which is 22 months ahead of chronological age, and their spelling was 21 months ahead. And you can see the summer birthdays were 24 months ahead and the spelling 21 months ahead. Boys, 25 months ahead. The boys are in the lead. And the spelling 26 months ahead. Girls, 16 and 13 for spelling. Free school meals were 12 months ahead of chronological age and 17 for spelling. The behaviour child is 25 months ahead for reading now and 25 months ahead for spelling. English as an additional language, 14 months ahead and 13. And the catch-up group, who are receiving intervention, they managed to achieve 15 months ahead of chronological age and 11 for spelling. And you can see it continues for the third year. And now the reading age is 7 years and 4 months, and the reading age is 28 months above chronological age and 21 for spelling. And you can see here above average or high for all categories. These results are remarkable. They demonstrate that even the so-called vulnerable groups were able to do extremely well and to achieve above average results. Now, for many years now, with the usual mixed methods of teaching and whole word learning, there have been far more boys failing with their reading than girls. Yet, when they are taught with synthetic phonics, they tend to be the same as the girls or even better than them. So if we look here at the boys, when they were 7, they were 36 months ahead of chronological age, which means they were reading like 10-year-olds and spelling like 9-year-olds with 27 months ahead. And if they are compared to national figures for boys using the standard assessment tests, then you can see that the study school achieved 100% on this test, which is the level that is expected for 7-year-olds, compared to the 84% achieved nationally. And for writing, it was 100% at that level 2 or above, of course, and only 78% nationally. Now, level 3 is 2 years ahead, and you can see here the study school achieved 33% at this higher level, compared to 23% in the rest of the country, and for writing, they achieved 20% at this higher level compared to 10%. In case you are thinking that a class of 30 children is not enough for a fair comparison, then look at the evidence from the next school, which was a very large school. Now, these children on school entry were at the very lowest level for language and the second lowest level for social skills on the national assessment that was carried out at that time. They certainly weren't from the leafy suburbs where parents have enough money to pay for extra tuition if their children are struggling. And here are the interesting results. Nearly 700 children were tested over the 8 years. And you can see here the number of pupils in 1997 was 66, and they were 6 months ahead of chronological age and 6 months ahead of spelling. But actually, this year they didn't start the synthetic phonics until Easter, so they only had a third of the year to achieve that, which was very good. The next year, there were 90 children, and they were 12 months ahead of reading age. They were ahead of their chronological age for reading, and 17 months for spelling. The year after was interesting because this was the year when decodable readers were introduced, and you can see now that it's gone up to 17 months ahead of chronological age for reading and 18 months for spelling. And on the whole, it remains about that for the rest of the years. And here you can have a look at the study school and compare it to the rest of England. Now, at this age, 11 years old, the children should achieve level 4 or above. And this school achieved 94% getting that, compared to the rest of England, 77%. And if you look at the level 5, that is the level that is 2 years higher. They got 65%, compared to 26% in the rest of the country. Now that level 3 is 2 years below, and they did have 6%, so there were still some strugglers, but compared to England, which had 15%. And if you look here, level 2 is really 4 years below where the children should be, and really the children have no idea what they're doing at that stage. 7% of the children were in England, but none of the children in the study school. And what is particularly interesting in this report is this part about dyslexia. Now, these studies demonstrate that dyslexia does not develop when children begin with a good synthetic phonics program, and when slow to start children are given extra practice and teaching with synthetic phonics in order to keep up. Not a single child in the studies developed severe literacy difficulty. It is worth reading the whole report, which explains about the teaching, gives recommendations for improvement, as well as the detailed results. The teaching and intervention follow the same synthetic phonics principles as recommended on this website. Now, the length of time a child needs intervention support will vary enormously. A few children truly are just slow to start, perhaps a little immature for their age, and with a little extra support quickly catch up and then do not need intervention anymore. Other children may have some specific problems linked to speech and language, concentration, memory, hearing loss, dyslexic type tendencies, behaviour, speed of processing and movement, and so on. These problems, with the right kind of teaching, can be overcome in normal state education, as has been shown in the report by Dr. Marlin Grant, as well as the many other pieces of research that have been carried out around the world. It should be the top priority in every school to try and ensure that all the children leave their primary school being able to confidently read and write at or above their chronological age, so that they can take full advantage of their secondary education. Now, this aim would be more difficult for a school to obtain if a struggling child did not start in the school but transferred there at an older age. Then it is more a question of identifying any reading and writing problems before providing extra support. And this aspect is covered in the next short section, Identifying Reading and Writing Problems. And that concludes this section on preventing reading and writing problems. Thank you.